News!
Okay, we'll start with this. At the risk of being a bit ahead of schedule, premature I'll say, I saw that both Sky Nicholson and Raven Chapman took to their social media to hint at some upcoming fight news that will be dropping very soon. They both made these posts simultaneously, which leaves me to believe that a fight between them is going to be announced. I have expected that young Sky would end up facing Tiaria Brown first, before she shares the ring with Raven Chapman, and it's not confirmed yet, it's not set in stone. Still a chance that they end up facing other fighters before facing each other, though it's telling that they both have fight news pending, fight news incoming, so on the premise that they're going to face each other next, and just in a very general sense, because they're on a collision course whether they fight each other next or not. Sky Nicholson sports professional record of 11 wins with no losses, no draws, 1 recorded knockout. To Raven Chapman, who sports professional record of 9 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 recorded knockouts. I would say that Raven is the stronger puncher of the two, and the more spiteful fighter of the two, with the right base style for the job. As they say, styles make fights. Raven has the right style for an outside jabber, a mover like a Sky Nicholson. The question is, at 9-0, is she developed enough with that style?
What?
Well, there is the fighter's base style, the style in which they operate, and at what level they compete with that style. C-level pressure fighter, B-level pressure fighter, A+.
You hear it all the time. There are levels.
There are tiers. So say you've got a B- pressure fighter versus an A- pure boxer, the pure boxer might still win. Oh, they might look human in the process, as pure boxers often do, opposite the ring pressure fighters, but because they're competing at a higher level, a higher grade,
they might still win.
It's rare, but it happens. Think Arislandi Lara versus Alfredo Angulo many years ago. Alfredo's a pressure fighter, Lara's a pure boxer, and even though Alfredo gave Lara all he could handle, he did lose.
It's rare, but it happens.
Usually it happens the other way. Usually it's the pressure fighter that beats the pure boxer. Though because the both of these young fighters, Raven Chapman and Sky Nicholson, are very much in the early stages of their careers, you do have to wonder if Raven is developed enough for this assignment. She's got the right style for the job, but does she have all the bells and whistles, the added extras?
How does she win?
In all likelihood, Raven Chapman is going to be the aggressor, and Sky Nicholson is going to be the defender. She's going to be on the move, on the fly. So the assignment for Raven is she's got to close the distance on Sky, cut off the ring. Don't just chase her. Don't just follow her in a straight line. Move parallel to her and meet her in the corners.
Cut off the ring.
She already has some of the right ingredients. The level changes, the hand speed, the combinations, and the ferocity.
Sky's best weapon is her movement, her long legs.
That's how she manages the distance, by staying on her toes and moving around. That is Sky's best weapon. So to combat that, you have to cut off the ring. And when you get in close, you have to go to the body. Take those legs away.
That's what Raven has to do. What Sky has to do
is stay in character. Sky is a long and limber featherweight. Long arms, long legs that make for long strides. She's got to do what she's been doing, stay on her toes on the perimeter of the ring, walking Raven Chapman into punches and keeping her at arm's length. Careful not to get into exchanges with her. Mid-range to inside, that proximity favors Raven. Mid-range to outside, long range, that favors Sky.
That's where she's got to keep it.
Sky's not a combination puncher. Raven Chapman is. So the closer to the target she gets, the more it favors her and her combination punching.
To get close.
Talked about how Raven's got to cut off the ring, move parallel to Sky. While she does it, she can double and triple up on the jab to keep Sky's guns holstered as she closes the distance, or
she can do what Canelo does.
Draw Sky Nicholson's lead. Bait her to throw as you close the distance so you can counter what she throws.
Where that head movement and those level changes come in. Raven's actually very good at that. The question,
will she be able to keep up with Sky as Sky gets on her bike? That's what she's going to do.
Question.
Will Sky Nicholson be able to keep Raven Chapman at arm's length and on the outside. Sky really only throws 1 and 2 punches at a time. She's not a combination puncher. Raven is.
Sky's not that heavy-handed because she fights on the balls of her feet. She's not really sitting on her punches or stepping into them. Most of the time, she's hanging back.
And most of the fighters that she's fought don't have the hand speed or the foot speed, athleticism, and level changes of a Raven Chapman. This is a very intriguing situation. Does Raven have all the bells and whistles? She's got the right base style for the job, but does she have the other ingredients? Is she developed enough?
Or is the Aussie a cut above?
Can Sky pass this acid test? That's what it is. Like I said, I don't know if they're fighting next. It looks like they're going to, though even if they're not, they are on a collision course. They always have been.
It's his kismet.
Yes.
It's his destiny.
They're gonna fight sooner or later, but it's looking like it's going to be sooner than later. In men's super bantam and featherweight news, newly crowned IBF champion Angelo Leo is ready to welcome Naoya Inoue to featherweight.
Of course he is.
Fresh from becoming a 2-division champion, Angelo Leo says he would like to slug it out with Naoya Inoue at 126 pounds. Leo, 30 years old, of Albuquerque, New Mexico, stopped Luis Alberto Lopez of Mexico in 10 rounds to snatch the IBF featherweight title at Tingley Coliseum in his hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico, August 10th. According to Leo, 25-1 with 12 KOs, he would love to have a shot at facing the Japanese monster in the future. Yes, of course, I think Naoya Inoue, in a way, is one of the best fighters in the world right now, and I would love to take a crack at him, Leo told Boxing Scene. I think he's fighting at 122 right now, and I heard a lot of rumors that he is planning to move up to 126 in the future. Leo's decision to move up to 126 after losing his WBO super bantamweight title to Stephen Fulton 3 years ago paid off when he earned a one-punch knockout over Luis Lopez to claim the IBF title. A powerful left hook from Leo dropped the champion and ended proceedings in front of Leo's hometown crowd, where he was fighting for the first time in 9 years. Despite recording an emphatic KO win, Leo admitted to not expecting the fight to end abruptly in his favor.
I didn't expect that either, I have to admit it.
I didn't expect Leo was gonna knock him out, let alone like that. The story is he hit the guy so hard, he gave Luis Lopez a brain bleed, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But as stated, I did not expect that to happen because at 122, Angelo Leo had power. He had decent power.
That's saying that he wasn't pillow-fisted. He was a slugger, and you could see there's something on his shots.
That there was something on his shots, but he didn't have standout power, like what you see from a Better Beef at light heavyweight, or an Inoue at super bantam. At super bantam, Angelo didn't seem like all that big a puncher, so when he goes in there at feather against Luis Lopez, I am not expecting he's gonna send that guy to the shadow realm the way that he did. Despite recording an emphatic KO win, Leo admitted to not expecting the fight to end abruptly in his favor. However, he described the decision to move up to featherweight as the best of his career, especially when his body started failing at 122. I moved up because 122 was just too difficult to make, Leo said. I felt like I was outgrowing 122 pounds and my body was asking for me to move up in weight. So that's why we decided to go to 126, and I feel a lot better there now. I would have to say that's the best decision. Honestly, we weren't really looking for the knockout. The strategy was just to go in there and outwork him, outpoint him, and if the knockout came, then it came. But for the most part, we were looking for a decision.
So here's the thing. He wants to fight Inoue.
If and when Inoue moves up. The caveat is that Inoue isn't about to move up. So when you hear Leo start to talk about how he outgrew 122, the exact same thing could start to happen at 126. How long is it going to take Inoue to move up to featherweight, and how will Leo be making the weight when the time comes?
Pay attention to that.
Angelo Leo ruled out a possible rematch with Luis Lopez after revealing that there was no such clause in their fight contract. His focus is to either face the undefeated 4-division champion Inoue or unify his new IBF title against his fellow belt holders Ray Vargas, Rafael Espinoza, and of course, Nick Ball. Inoue is reportedly seeking to move up to 126 if he's able to successfully defend his unified WBC, IBF, WBO, and WBA titles against TJ Doheny on September 3rd at the Ariake Arena, Kotoku in Japan. Should the Japanese star decide to remain at 122 after the fight, Leo could decide to unify with Vargas or Espinoza. I would like either Espinoza or Vargas. Espinoza is a tall fighter that throws a lot of punches, and Ray Vargas is also another tall fighter that throws a lot of punches, and I throw a lot of punches, so I think it's a fan-friendly fight.
The same applies to Nick Ball, who's going to be defending his title for the first time against Ronnie Rios very soon. Nick Ball throws a lot of punches, just like Leo.
I'm surprised that Angelo didn't mention him. Despite all these plans, Angelo Leo wants to move up in weight in the future.
Of course he does.
I plan on staying here for a few more fights, possibly a few more years, and then moving up to 130 pounds. Does he do it before unifying this division or before fighting Naoya Inoue? That all depends on how his body feels. Him being able to continue to make that weight.
The story is that Top Rank has options on him and his next two fights. He may face his mandatory challenger in his next fight and cap off that two-fight situation with a unification, and I'm not against that.
His next two fights are going to be under the Top Rank banner. He wants to fight Inoue. How does he stack up with that fighter? Well, Angelo Leo seems to have benefited from moving up from 122 up to 126. And Inoue would benefit the same way.
How?
Angelo Leo was not that big a puncher at 122. Moving up to 126, not having to lose that extra 4 pounds, he benefited from that. The same applies to Inoue.
Not having to cut that extra 4 pounds give him a kick in the ass too.
A strength boost too. That if a decent puncher like an Angelo Leo can benefit from that, an even bigger puncher than Angelo could benefit from that, because Inoue's still a monster at 122. The power is still there, and the speed.
And the fight?
It's great that Angelo Leo was able to become a two-division champion. He was WBO champion at 122. Now he's IBF champion at 126. I think a big part of the reason he was able to consistently catch Luis Lopez with his pants down, proverbially, is because Luis Lopez has never been a fundamentally sound fighter. He's been a very athletic fighter, athletically gifted, though not fundamentally sound, which is why periodically throughout their fight, Angelo was able to get through with some hard punches, particularly the left hook that knocked him out. With Inoue, it's a different kettle of fish, because he's a lot more fundamentally sound than a Luis Lopez, and athletically gifted.
That he is fast and he is strong, but he doesn't just rely on his speed or his strength. No, he's not in love with his own hand speed like an Amir Khan was.
Or in love with his own power like a Deontay Wilder is. He's still a tactician, a technician. He's precise. He's accurate.
It may be a lot harder to land on him, and if you try to, there's a greater probability that something's gonna come back at you.
There are always perils for a fighter that's moving up in weight, let alone a fighter who's already moved up in weight to his 4th division, going on 5. There are always perils. So there are perils associated with an Angelo Leo fight. For Naoya Inoue, there are perils.
But I think he can handle it.
I think the most awkward fight at featherweight for Naoya Inoue would have to be the Rafael Espinoza fight, because how many featherweights stand in at about 6'1"? That would be one of the more awkward fights for Inoue. But this one, I think he can handle this one, because Angelo, like him, used to campaign at 122.
Angelo is not that big a guy.
Not so big that he knew he can't handle this assignment. I think if and when the time comes, he can handle it. And of course, you have to account for time. That by the time Inoue does move up in weight, how is Angelo going to be making the weight? Is he going to be busting at the seams? Is his punch resistance going to start to suffer for it?
You have to account for that.
A lot may come to pass before it ever becomes about Inoue versus Leo, but just first look at first glance, I give Inoue good odds to beat the guy. Now, as far as unifying this division with one or some of the other champions at the weight, what is Angelo Leo's best bet to become a unified champion in the featherweight division? I'm going to go right ahead and say I don't think it's Rafael Espinoza, reigning WBO champion. I think, given Angelo Leo's propensity to turn a fight into a slugfest, you don't want to slug with that guy.
You turn it into a gunfight, I'd wager he's got the bigger guns. You can't match his power.
I don't think Angelo can. I think there's a strong possibility Rafael Espinoza might knock him out. With Ray Vargas, who's long and limber, very tall for the weight, like Rafael is tall for the weight. With Ray, it's the opposite. Ray likes to move and punch. Ray likes to box, and because he's so tall,
He's gonna use his height, and you're gonna have to chase him.
like Nick Ball had to chase him because of the dramatic height differential, it's Pretty much the same deal with Angelo Leo and Ray Vargas. Ray has a very pesky style, and it's worked for him for a very long time. So I don't know that Ray is Angelo's best bet to become a unified champion. I honestly think his best bet is the guy that he didn't mention, Nick Ball, newly crowned WBA champion. Because Nick is so much smaller, so much more compact than either Ray Vargas or Rafael Espinoza, he's the smallest of all the featherweight champions. He's actually very small as far as featherweights go.
He's smaller than Angelo.
Albeit very stocky, very sturdy, and very strong. The way he judo tosses his opponents across the ring, oftentimes opponents that are much taller and longer than he is. I think Nick Ball would be Angelo's best bet to become a unified champion, and even then, it's not a sure thing. It's not a lock, but that's his best bet.
Compared to the other two guys, it is.
Because he won't have to chase Nick Ball. Nick Ball is a pressure fighter, a mid-range to inside fighter, and because of his small, compact stature, in many ways, he has to be. But you don't have to go looking for him. You don't have to find him, because he'll find you.
Nick is supposed to be defending his newly obtained WBA title for the first time against seasoned veteran Ronnie Rios. If he makes it through that fight, Angelo Leo should target him.
And like I said, even then, it's not a lock that Angelo wins. It's not a guarantee, but I think he stands a better chance against Nick than those other two guys.
You wonder if that's not why he's targeting Inoue, who hasn't even moved up in weight yet. One, because he's the money man anywhere at or around these weights, but also because unifying the featherweight division is not going to be easy. These are all good fighters, formidable fighters. All of them, Angelo Leo included. And you've got to run a gauntlet to become a unified champion at this weight, to become an undisputed champion at this weight. You've got to go through the fire. Maybe Angelo Leo knows that. Nick is his best bet to unify a title.
Both Nick Ball and Angelo Leo are mid-range to inside fighters, mid-range to inside sluggers. So with Nick, Angelo would get the chance to fight the kind of fight that he's used to fighting. The caveat is, who's better at that range? Angelo or Nick? There's only one way to find out.
More ways to win.
Because Nick is so much smaller than everyone else at this weight, Angelo Leo included, another avenue of opportunity might be to alternate. Box when you need to, punch when you need to, move when you need to.
You can't do that with Ray and Rafael because they're too tall. If you hang back on the outside, you're a sitting duck. But with Nick, because he's so small, you can stay on the outside.
You don't have to spend the whole fight in the pocket. So Nick would be Angelo's best bet.
To unify a title.